Good day. This is the 92nd day of the Ukrainian resistance and the operation of the Mediacentru Ukraine. Today we'll talk about Davos. We'll discuss Davos with Oleksii Honcharenko, an MP of Ukraine. Good day. Greetings. Oleksii, we have a straightforward question to you. What struck you or what do you remember most from this Davos event? This was a truly Ukrainian Davos, and Ukraine was on top of the agenda, topic number one, everywhere. Let me remind you that Davos is a World Economic Forum, first and foremost, but Ukraine was truly on top of the agenda across all panels, and this is what struck me, and certainly it is critically important for us. Some people are saying there's a certain fatigue of Ukraine, some certain fatigue of Ukraine war, but Davos has proven the contrary. For certain, we are and shall remain topic number one. Other countries, like Pakistan and some other countries, have issued opinions like, will we talk anything except Ukraine with due respect? So people have been jealous in a way, but still we've remained the top topic at Davos World Economic Forum. We understand that we've been on top of the agenda, but can you give us some specific, some takeaways of this Davos Forum? Well, firstly, Davos isn't a place where decisions are made on a formal level. This is a place where some contracts are signed, but rarely. This is a trend-setting platform. This is where agreements are reached. And for certain, we can make the conclusion that the Western world will stand with Ukraine financially, and that is so important for us, considering that the national economy of Ukraine has come to a stall. The war is going into a protracted phase, and this is understood. Nobody is looking forward to a speedy resolution. And the West is prepared to keep standing with Ukraine in this war. The next question we should address is what is the desirable end state. It may be one for us, it may be seen differently for them, but we've got to iron it out. There are many outstanding questions, and it is for Ukraine to answer the questions. And that is important. We are now past the sprint, and we are now having won the sprint, having battled Kyiv. We are now going into the marathon, having sustained heavy losses, having the massive war in Donbass. So we are now into a marathon phase, and the matter of international support equals the importance of military support. So these are the key questions. We'd be hard pressed without the international support, and we need to fight to secure the support. We need to keep arguing and describe what's happening in the battlefront, what's happening in the Black Sea, what's happening with the negotiations. But still, no matter how well publicized these developments are, we still have to do a lot of explaining. This is the first ever Davos without Russia taking part. What is said about the future of Russia? Where will it belong in the world system of coordinates? Will it be isolated? Will there be collective pressure exercised on Russia from the collective West? What's in the air? Indeed, this is the first ever Davos without Russia. It's very symbolic and indicative that the Russian House was turned into the Russian atrocity crimes house. This used to be the venue where people were treated with black caviar, different oil, gas, and pump lines were discussed. But now this Russian atrocity crimes House sends a very potent signal. There's an exhibition of the very best Ukrainian photographer, including the deceased Max Levin, and it's truly heart-rendering and striking, and it's very symbolic that it is housed in the very same house. As for the messengers on Russia and the plans and expectations, well, they'd be different depending on people, but Russia has chosen to leave the global civilized society. Some admitted it openly, some it had to admit it having sustained economic loss, some still hope to recover the losses, but there are a few voices denying the fact, so it's a common admission. I had talked to a number of people who apologized to me for failing to understand, for denying us their support, for not seeing the threat emanating from Russia. And that is indicative. As for the future that lies for Russia, it's hard to say for anyone. Apparently, this is going to be one of the major challenges for the world. People are aware of that and are prepared to work to stop the threat and meet the challenge. Thank you for this answer. Tell us, what should Ukraine be doing in order to win? What does Ukraine need to do with its foreign partners and friends in order to win? What are your takeaways from Davos? Let me discuss the topics that I initiated, and they led the discussion. Firstly, it's a issue of atrocity crimes and tribunals of Russian war criminals and Russian military and political leadership topped by Putin. This is a very important matter. It is a key interest for ourselves in order to ensure accountability, bringing justice, preventing the repetition of the same crimes in the future. And now the Russians need to know that they will be held accountable. And if we raise the topic, that will help prevent the crimes and protect 100,000 Ukrainians who are now in isolation. Another issue is further isolation of Russia. The question has been raised. It has received a lot of attention and should continue receiving attention. The next question is support to Ukraine. We have discussed military support to Ukraine, although Davos isn't exactly the value, but we did discuss military support, and that has received a lot of attention. But economic assistance is another issue that has received attention. The economic and financial support to Ukraine were discussed. Sanctions were discussed, and one should be done about oil and gas, and that fits into Davos perfectly. There are countries that be willing to be doing business almost as usual, but still be doing business. We need to continue levying pressure and raising this question at all platforms. The next important matter is the recovery of Ukraine. Having talked to some speakers, I advocated that we need to start rebuilding Ukraine now, not even waiting for the hostilities to cease. That is more complicated, and that raises the question of missile strikes, etc. But we have to argue that this sends an important signal. Secondly, it's a way to boost the economy, and it's also a way to address the refugees, as many people are returning home to Ukraine already, and many people don't have a house, a home to go back to. And building homes in the quieter regions of Ukraine for the people who can't go home yet, or whose homes have been occupied or reduced to rubble, would send a very powerful signal and would be very important for us and for those people. So these are some of the topics that led the agenda that we brought into the discussion, and certainly Davos is a platform which is covered by the leading mass media, and I had a chance to talk to the editor-in-chief of the Wall Street Journal, The Economist, the leading journalists of the Financial Times, CNBC, and other mass media outlets. So these are the leading global and financial publications of the world. And that is a very important instrument that we should use. We talked about the editorial in the New York Times that has caused a lot of uproar in Ukraine and worldwide, saying that Ukraine has to make concessions of some kind. And this idea of saving face for Putin and the concessions that Ukraine is ready to make, this narrative is being developed, and we need to counter it. They all say that it is for Ukraine to decide, but they are trying to gauge some cautious advice. But we have to make it clear that we are not going to concede our territories, we are not going to concede our sovereignty, and most importantly, we are not going to concede our people, as they are in the occupation now. And we need to argue that the best way to bring this war to a close, and that is what everyone wants to see happen, would be to help Ukraine win this war as soon as possible. We need to explain and argue and promote this idea. George Soros said that he perceives three scenarios: a crisis, the world global war, and total annihilation of the civilization. This is according to George Soros. The world is preparing for a crisis. It has already started, and the war is an economic crisis triggering a social crisis. The global energy prices, the sanctions are hitting Russia, and they have further ramifications. The world food prices, the blockage of the Black Sea was amongst the most popularly discussed topics. Odessa port was mentioned often as the leading Ukrainian seaport on the Black Sea. All this is triggering a global food crisis. The world is bracing itself for hard times ahead. Thank you. Thank you very much for giving your insights of the Davos takeaways. This was Oleksii Honcharenko, a member of Ukrainian Parliament. Our next briefing is coming up at 12. We'll talk to Alexander Staruch, the military governor of Zaporizhia region. We'll discuss the situation in the region. We'll talk about the local economy and the war.